Greetings, YouTube. Today I'm going to talk about the film Night and Day, the new action romantic comedy featuring Tom Cruise and Cameron Diaz. Now, the first thing I want to say is that both of these actors look great. Cruise is in incredible condition. He looks 10 years younger than his age. I was totally convinced that he could be the character he was in this film. It was pleasant. I know that in the past I've encountered actors that I just didn't buy that they could physically do the things the characters in the film that they were portraying are shown doing. But Cruise really sold me. Even though the stunt work was completely over the top and absurd, he still had a physicality about him and had, I don't know if he bulked himself out a little, but he had kind of a stocky build overall that really suited him in the character. And Diaz was just radiant. And one of the things I liked about both of these actors is that they looked real. There are wrinkles in their faces. They didn't airbrush these people. They didn't try to make them look perfect. They looked like people. They looked like individuals I could see walking down the street. It was very pleasant. I enjoyed that. The basic story is that it appears to be happenstance when the main character, played by Cruise, bumps into the character played by Diaz. And I'm going to throw a bunch of spoilers in here, so be aware of that. In actuality, he uses her as a mule to get a piece of technology smuggled through an airport security. And because of this, she is then targeted by the intelligence community. And he now feels a certain level of responsibility for her. One thing happens after another. She just thinks he's interested in her because maybe he's single. Then suddenly begins to realize that he really is involved in the intelligence community, and he may well be insane. And he acts in this kind of over-the-top, unbalanced manner to give her a sense of plausible deniability. Because she can always say, this crazy guy made me do this. And get away. You know, get out, you know, under the radar of the actual intelligence community, so they're not going to target her and consider her to be some kind of foreign asset or something. Or a rogue agent working for herself, trying to do something, you know, illegal. And that works at the beginning of the film. But at a certain point in the movie, we realize that he's not crazy. That he really is doing something that needs to be done. That he has been betrayed. That he is really the good guy. That he is trying to defend our best interests as a nation. And that someone working for the actual quote-unquote good guys is actually the bad guy. After that point in the film, he doesn't need to act crazy anymore. Yet he still does. It was odd. It didn't seem to fit in. It was very incongruent. I think the film suffered from writing because Diaz and Cruise did an excellent job with the material they were given. They did the best possible job they could given the writing and the dialogue and the scenes they were given. The film looks good. The action is solid. The scenery is nice. Some nice international locations. A number of different kinds of tropical, European things looked good. You know, it was very pleasant. It was a nice travel guide, if you will. Nice train scenes. I happen to be a fan of trains. But the writing fell short. You can't do great work when you're not given good tools. And Cruise and Diaz were not given good tools. To me, there was too much action to be a good romantic comedy, and there was too much romantic comedy to be a really good action. They tried to hit that sweet spot that had been done in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is an excellent film, a lot of fun. But it's a hard balance to hit, you know what I mean? And this film, Night and Day, just didn't have the writing that it needed to hit that sweet spot, which is a pity, because Diaz and Cruise brought to the table exactly what you needed to make this film as big as Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But as a machinist I used to work with once told me, you can't polish a turd. And they were given a turd to work with. This isn't a bad movie. I saw it in the cheap theaters. It was $7 for 2 people to go see it. For that, it was worth it. When there's a DVD release with commentary and I can get it cheap, like for $2 or $3, I'll pick it up. I want to hear the commentary. I want to see what the director has to say about his decisions. I'd love to get either Cruise or Diaz in there on the commentary track. That would be cool as well. I also have to admit that I don't quite buy Diaz's character's competence. She's supposed to be the owner of a garage. She's a gearhead, which explains why she's in good shape and mechanically inclined. Fine, I got no problem with that. But she showed a level of confidence with firearms and with general spy stuff that didn't make sense to me. It was a little too convenient. So, it's not a perfect scenario. But I really enjoyed Tom Cruise in this film. It was a little sillier than like the Bourne Supremacy. Again, kind of in the Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of vein. But it just didn't quite hit the mark, which is, again, a pity, because I think it could have been as big as Mr. and Mrs. Smith if they had just had better writing. If the dialogue had been a little snappier, a little more sophisticated, the banter had just been, just a little bit more. But, again, you get it cheap, you want to rent it, it's going to be an entertaining way to spend an evening. If you like romantic comedies or spy-type action films, you can do a whole lot worse than this. But I really think that Cruise and Diaz did an excellent job. They just weren't given enough to work with.